recalling some of these times with Jennifer and Catherine, our family has had a good time reflecting back on our memories of the Governor's Mansion. And while reading memories of the mansion, I couldn't help but hear a familiar theme from the other families. Many said it's a privilege that you want to be a good caretaker of the Governor's Mansion, and it's only temporary. Well, it was about 3 months after we moved into the mansion in 1975 that a tornado hit the mansion and ripped the roof off, stripped away the columns, uprooted these mature redwoods around the grounds. So how we were doing as a caretaker of the Governor's Mansion, not too well at that point. When you see the photos, it was quite a lot of destruction, but it was pulled together quickly by a great team of folks who worked on that. And we were also reminded by that tornado just how temporary it could be. At the time of the tornado, none of us thought it was particularly funny. But a few months later, at the Georgia Press Association's annual Cracker Crumble, we could laugh when we saw a full-page ad in the evening's program taken out by the Bank of North Georgia and Burt Lance with a picture of the mansion with all of this destruction. And the roof's ripped off again and everything's destroyed, and the headline read, "This ad bum." But on a more serious note, as others have said, I'm sure my mom and dad, if they were here today, that they would want to thank Mrs. Sanders and Governor Sanders for their vision and their perseverance in making the Georgia Governor's Mansion a reality. The result was a mansion from design to furnishings to decor that was created with excellence. Many of you know, two of my dad's main goals were to bring industry to Georgia, to create jobs, and to have an educated workforce to work in those jobs. Well, in the mid-1970s, the world was really beginning to discover Atlanta and Georgia in a real big way. And of course, the election of President Carter provided a huge catalyst for the interest in Georgia. While many people were involved in this effort to woo industry during my dad's administration, my dad had a secret weapon. Okay, he had two secret weapons. My mom being the first, of course. But the other was the Governor's Mansion. In his efforts to convince international and domestic business leaders around Georgia that Georgia was a great place to work and to do business. It was also, it was at the Governor's Mansion, was a great place and provided first-rate hospitality, and it was a first-rate Governor's Mansion. That was a key role at the Governor's Mansion during those years. While some of our families were exciting and interesting memories of the time spent with many of the dignitaries and famous folks who came to the Governor's Mansion during those years, our best memories are the time spent with family. There were memories of weddings and twin and triplets, coming and visiting and playing, and big family reunions. Those were such sweet memories for us as a family. My dad was known for working hard, but he also liked to play. He liked to play hard, and he loved a good joke, and he didn't mind pulling a prank or two. He would often say, "Work hard, and play hard." And on one occasion, a state senator, who was also known for pulling off some practical jokes, was leaving the mansion after a legislative dinner. And the state trooper at the gate approached the senator's car while he was leaving and instructed the senator to open the trunk, where a large box of state silverware. He had the silverware planted in the state senator's trunk. While reading memories of the mansion, I've enjoyed reminiscing on some of my own experiences and going through this process when we were interviewing with Catherine and Jennifer. But it's been just as fun reading about the experiences of the other First Families. Mrs. Barnes, for years I guarded my secret, putting a girl on the dumbwaiter and sending her from the basement kitchen to the top floor kitchen, only to read almost now 40 years later that you did that. Thank you, Mrs. Dill, for putting this project and making it become a reality. Thank you very much.
Chair, thank you so much. Russ, I know you've got some things to contribute.
I don't know. You just feel how everything builds upon one another. And as I remember back, and Shirley and I were glancing about going back to that Grant Mansion where you were, Betty Sanders, I can remember Joe Frank being elected, and he was so young, and we didn't know what we'd gotten into. And we got there to the governor's mansion, and where did she place us? But out on the back porch. And I thought, is this all there is? And Betty, I was so proud of you. And even though Joe Frank was fortunate enough to stay in the legislature for 18 years, I can remember one of the biggest things that we had to overcome was voting for a new governor's mansion. Nobody wanted to vote for a new governor's mansion. That would have been politically incorrect. But I'll tell you what, when I was able, at 43 years old, after Joe Frank had spent 18 years in Tennessee, we moved into that mansion, and I had been a preacher's kid, and I had moved in some of the sorriest Methodist conferences. I told my dad, I said, boy, that was good training to be where I am, because I did know how to take care of other people's property, and it was good training. Because I had seen in Betty all the visions you had put into that mansion. She wanted it to do the very best. She didn't want anything inexpensive. She wanted the best. She put skull on her fabrics. She put O's on rugs on. And I never will forget the French ambassador coming in there, and he looked at that rug and he said, "You're walking on this rug?" It should have been on the wall. Those are treasures and even in sitting when we were in Ireland at the Waterford Factory in one of the economic developments, I said, you know, we have wonderful, wonderful Waterford crystal there, and so much of it. But you know what we don't have? We don't have any iced tea glasses. And we in the South love iced tea. And he said, you mean you don't have any iced tea? Well, we don't make. They didn't make iced tea glasses. But you know, he says, well, how many do you have of each pattern? And I told him, about 80. 2 months later, 2 big boxes came. And they had beautiful iced tea glasses. You know, it was such an experience of mine to be able to enjoy all what had been built on there and what had been part of it. I loved the grounds. And as I walked through the grounds, I wanted that to just say Georgia loud and clear. And as I thought about all the garden clubs, and Dean Day Sanders was sitting in the audience out here, the trees that she helped plant in the gardens, it really meant a lot to me. When others came and I could say, this is Georgia. We might not all live like we live in the governor's mansion when we were fortunate enough to live there for 8 years. But it was a beautiful place because it represented the hearts of people. We had wonderful roses. We had Pete Pike, bless his heart, he came early on and he says, you know, you just ought to have a lot. There's some beautiful roses that the president had. And even Jeff brought some roses to when we were in the legislature. And I was in the hospital, and he brought a beautiful bouquet of roses from the rose garden that planted a seed. And Joe Frank had roses on the governor's desk from early May to December that came from the mansion rose garden. All because somebody before me had started that. But Pete Pike said, you need lots of roses. 400 rose bushes were planted there. And what did I love to do? And after a hard day, cut those spent roses. And you know that boiler room thing there that you were talking about that's down there, and the pipes were clanging and all the things that she shared in a conversation with me yesterday that needed fixing? That boiler room was a wonderful place to dry everybody had brought in select gifts, and one of them was a big kudzu basket. And Joe Frank came and he says, "What's that?" I said, "Honey, that's our Georgia. We're doing forgiving gifts. This is a kudzu basket in pretty." And he said, "Yeah, kudzu. You leave it there long enough, it'll grow." Well, not too long after that, I came in, going somewhere, and all of a sudden I saw a kudzu thing. It was starting in the troopers down in security. Followed that kudzu, finally got bigger and bigger. I got on the elevator. There was more kudzu there. I thought, what in the world is going on? What are they doing? I followed that kudzu and went up to the living quarters, the second floor. Got out. Kudzu was all the way into the master bedroom, all over the bed. And what was sitting there was that basket. Don't you know my husband? He was full of it. But those are the kind of memories that you do share. And you just share away. And there's one that has been not there anymore, and I'm kind of worried about it. First Lady deal. The buzzer's not under the family dining room table anymore. And you know, every guest we had there for luncheon, they just couldn't believe that the butler and court would just appear just when it was appropriate, and they couldn't understand. And I had two authors that were there, Terry Kay and I won't mention them. But anyway, because I love the books and I love bringing authors in, and we did have Erskine Caldwell there, and Otto's been abundant, bless his heart, and he and Sarah. Their book was on the library table when I first walked in. Got to know how wonderful the talent and artists that I'd always seen in AJC magazine. These are the kind of people that you were able to bring up and mention. But the best part of it all was Christmas time and holidays and during the week when visitors would come. But one particular time, a little Brandy was there, and as we were opening the door on that Christmas, and I think the story's in the book. But she looked up at the girl and she says, "If you're as rich as they say you are, just how rich are you?" And Jennifer knew that she was probably looking at that